The vacation in Hawaii is over for President Obama. The Washington he returns to today will be different than the one he left. Tomorrow, a new Congress, including the Republican-controlled House, will be sworn in. The GOP is already taking aggressive steps. They've set a January 12th vote to repeal the health care reform law. David Mark, senior editor for Politico, joining us now from Washington. David, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Good
Republicans,
to be with you.
Good to see you. Happy New Year to you. Republicans aren't wasting any time here. They've set up this vote to repeal health care, which even if it passes, you've still got a democratically controlled Senate, and the president said he'd veto. What are Republicans trying to do here?
It is a bit like going through a kabuki dance. We kind of know the preordained outcome. Still, Republicans want to send a message. They want to tell their base of supporters, this is a key issue. We're doing everything in our power to basically block this new health care plan. Even if it's not likely to be enacted into law, this is the first step in trying to roll this thing back.
So how much of this factors realistically into the 2012 elections?
It's certainly a big factor going to the 2012 elections. Those are still more than a year and a half off or so, but it's laying the predicate for undermining the entire Obama agenda, not just on health care, financial reform legislation, environmental issues, and many others.
Is there anything that Republicans can do to cut off or cut back on health care reform?
Even though they're almost certain not to repeal the entire health care law, what they can do is kind of pick holes at it and really undermine it. They can refuse to fund certain portions of the program. They can hold investigative hearings about how the program's been implemented, and they can take other steps. Some of those may work, some of them may not, but it will, in their minds at least, kind of sour the public on the whole health care program.
And we'll talk about those investigative hearings here in just a bit. But two other big things, two big fights coming up in Congress over the next few months. There's the government spending bill and raising the debt ceiling. Do you think we'll see the same spirit of compromise that we saw at the end of 2010?
I think we actually may, but it could take a while. Both sides are going to be yelling and screaming at each other in the first few months. Republicans are going to want to show that they can one-up the Obama administration. Democrats in Congress are going to be fighting Republicans every step of the way. But at some point, they're going to have to reach some kind of compromise on spending. It may not be what everybody wants. They may not smile about it. But I do think there actually is some room for a compromise down the line.
But with all of this yelling and screaming, is doing nothing an option? No spending bill. We could see a government shutdown. The White House says not raising that debt ceiling could have a catastrophic impact on the economy.
I think that's unlikely. It's one thing to rail against raising the debt ceiling while one's on the campaign trail. It's something different entirely when you have to govern, when you have to make those tough decisions. I don't think either side wants to be held responsible for shutting down the government, for having the U.S. default on its loans for the first time in our history. So even though it looks like a possibility now, I think in the end it's unlikely that will happen.
Back to those Republican investigations. We talk about Republican Congressman Darrell Issa here, and it's a lot of talk about him because he's going to be in charge of the House Oversight Committee, which means he can hold those hearings and those investigations. What do you think we'll expect from him?
Congressman Issa is trying to take more of a statesman-like approach to this, at least as he is trying to portray himself. He does not want to make it look like a witch hunt of the Obama administration, look like he's just going after the Obama team for partisan purposes. He says he's trying to look at how efficiently government operates, look at wasteful spending programs, as he would say. It remains to be seen how much the public is going to go along with him. But it does look like he's taking a rather measured approach, and he's being very careful in the targets he selects.
And another name that we're starting to hear about here, we're hearing that President Obama reportedly considering naming former Commerce Secretary William Daley as Chief of Staff. He'd be the replacement for Rahm Emanuel. What do you know about him?
Mr. Daley is an old Democratic hand. He was Commerce Secretary during the second Clinton term. He actually ran Al Gore's campaign in 2000. He was on stage in Nashville that fateful night. He's more recently been a business consultant. He's now at J.P. Morgan in Chicago. So he has those ties to the business community. That would seemingly be one of the reasons President Obama would want to bring him in, for those ties to the business community, particularly as the president gears up for re-election in 2012.
All this talk and the party hasn't even started yet. It doesn't get started until tomorrow. David Mark from Politico. David, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.